He was one of the top Canadian board CFL receivers the league has seen, Mike Morreale. Now he's a CEO and commissioner of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up. Welcome to the program. Our guest today hails from Hamilton. He starred at McMaster University. He was drafted in the second round by the Toronto Argonauts. He played 13 years in the CFL for Toronto and Hamilton. He won the CFL's Outstanding Canadian Award. He was top Canadian in the 1999 Grey Cup. He was winner of the Tom Pate Award. He was president of the CFL Players Association. And now he's commissioner and CEO of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Mike Morreale. Mike, good to have you here.
Joe, I'm telling you, it's great to hear the voice. I don't want to age one of us or both of us, I'd say, but it's been a while. I feel like I grew up to that voice. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you, and I loved watching you play, my friend. Got a chance to do that quite a bit. So, growing up in the Hammer was being a football player something that you always aspired to.
I think it was. I think it was in my blood. Had a family that just loved and adored the Ticats, and I kind of grew up as through osmosis, just learning that that's what
Uh
we
huh.
needed to do, and going to the stadium, early. My memories started around 5 years old, going to watch games, and then my grandfather telling me stories about the old Tigers and Wildcats back at the HAAA grounds and the first forward pass, and so I just kind of was born into it. My dad played for a very short stint in St. Mary's University before they kicked him out, and of course my cousin, my cousin Paul Massotti had a very very long career, all with Toronto. So I had some pretty good influence, and once I got the taste, I didn't start until grade 10. Once I got that taste, it's what I knew I wanted to do.
Right. So, interesting. I didn't know Mazzotti was your cousin. That's really in the blood, isn't it? So, uh, what? How'd you end up at McMaster? Was this were you recruited by the school?
So recruited very heavily by a gentleman, the coach at McMaster at that time, by the name of Steve Bruno. He had come from Mount Allison, had some success out there, and was probably one of the best recruiters I've ever seen. I mean, I had no intention of going to Mac. My eyes were set on, okay, what can I do in Division One football, or what maybe can I do out east, or where was I going to go on my football career? And I just realized that in terms of going to the states, that was going to be maybe a Division AA. There was not really any clear opportunities, and it was never a goal of mine to go that direction. I always wanted up in the CFL, and I thought, okay, well, let's stay in Canada and maybe go out east like my dad did. And finally, it just took an actual tour of McMaster University. I'd never been there. I lived in Hamilton and Stony Creek my whole life. Did the tour, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is all right. And it just so happened, because of the strength of that recruiting of Steve Bruno, he had recruited a bunch, about a dozen players within that Hamilton Wentworth school board football program, some Cathedral and all over the place, and St. Mary's, etc. And then it like, okay, these guys are going. This looks like a destination for some Hamilton kids. Let's start something here in Hamilton. And I'm really, really fortunate I went there. We did not have any winning records, never made the playoffs in 4 years. Had a heck of a group of guys, and we just couldn't put it together. There was a lot of talent in the OUA at that time. And but all things work out in the end. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, you finished pretty well because you got drafted in the second round of the CFL draft by the rival Argos. I guess that
Yep.
must have been, hard for the family to ingest, I'm sure. But here you are playing for the Double Blue, and in your second year, you win a Grey Cup. The
Mhm.
Snowball victory at Edmonton, 43-37, great game. The victory over Edmonton. Uh, what was it like catching passes from Doug Flutie?
Oh man, I've been blessed. I've been very blessed. If you go through my Rolodex of quarterbacks that I played with, it started with Kent Austin when I got drafted to BC originally, and then it moved on to Doug Flutie, and then to Damon Allen and Danny McManus, Anthony Calvillo with his stint in Hamilton. I mean, all Hall of Famers. And so catching passes from all of them was a treat. Doug had a way about himself that he made being a receiver very, very easy. Once he got out of the pocket, once he started moving around and started using that athleticism, often you would be standing wide open 15 yards down the field, and he would just throw a nice floater into you, and the rest is history. I mean, he is likely I know the best player I've ever played with in terms of all round ability. He was the Wayne Gretzky of the
Hmm.
CFL, so to speak. And I think Danny was the best quarterback I played with. He was just the most all round. Doug could have played any position and been a star. That's just the way he was.
So, how did you end up with the hometown Tiger Cats? How did that deal come about?
Yeah, so I became a free agent. I got drafted to BC, got released even in training camp in BC, but I got my name into the draft in my third year. So it was early with if that did happen, I'm thinking, you know what, I'll just come back to Mac, play my fourth year, and then figure it out. I did. I came back to Mac, played my fourth year, and then Toronto picked me up. And that was a bit of a shock because, probably the
Yeah,
last place I thought I was going to go. But, at this point in time, you just want to play professionally. I would have played on the moon if there was a team there.
yeah,
So getting picked up with the Argos was a big deal. It was a big deal to my family. It was a big deal around town. They weren't too fond of it. Um, but after a couple of years in Toronto, I always wanted to come back home to Hamilton, and I was a free agent after my second year after the Grey Cup. I left what was, probably one of the best teams ever assembled, that 1997 team that went on to
yeah.
win the Grey Cup in Toronto. But I just needed some, autonomy. I think I just needed to spread my wings a bit. And I was not walking into anything of any starting position or anything in Hamilton. I just wanted to go home. And, took the leap. We won, I think, that year in Hamilton. Well, when the Argos went and won the Grey Cup, we were 4-14 or 2-16.
Yeah.
It was not good. But then the next year rolls in Ron Lancaster and Danny McManus and Darren Flutie, and then we're off and running, right? And so no regrets. There's been a couple times when I went to BC, they won the Grey Cup that year that I got cut in training camp. I left Toronto in 97. They won the Grey Cup. I went back to Toronto in '02 and '03. I left in '04, and Toronto won the Grey Cup in '04. So I've
Right.
I'm just the tune-up, and then I get out of the way and let the teams win. But I did go to three of them and won two, so I'm very blessed.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. So 1998, that worked out pretty well to move to Hamilton because you were named the CFL's top Canadian that season. So obviously you fit into that situation pretty well. What an honor that must have been to be
Oh,
named top Canadian in the CFL.
yeah, I mean, it's just, when you're a young kid writing your signature on a piece of paper and hoping one day you'll be able to do that, be famous or play football. And that was always my mentality. And then, my first kind of, I guess, besides the fact I made the CFL in the first place, but my first taste of like, oh my God, was that Grey Cup in '96. Because that Grey Cup was, I was playing for the Argos, but it was at Iverwood Stadium in Hamilton, where I
Mm.
grew up watching, the Cats and sitting in those stands. So that was a very cool, emotional moment. But nothing beats kind of, our turnaround in '98 was fantastic. I was very blessed to play a part in it and to be able to get that trophy. I never expected to get, like, it wasn't part of my dreams. Winning Grey Cups were, but I never really thought about the individual stuff. And that just comes from playing with really good people. That was a big thrill. And then, of course, being able to go back in '99 and win that for Hamilton, I think that's nothing tops that.
Yeah, we want to talk about that 1999 game because that's pretty special. You make it to the Grey Cup once again. This, I would think, had to be the highlight of your career for sure. Playing for the hometown Ticats. You caught three big passes in that game, 32-21 win over Calgary. Uh, what were the keys to the victory in that Grey Cup game?
You know, if you go back to '98, we played the same team, Calgary, led by Jeff Garcia in Winnipeg, and lost on a last second field goal. And obviously, it kind of nullified what was a really, really good season for us, big turnaround, but man, it left a big taste in our mouths, a bad one. So we went to training camp the following year, 1999. The very first meeting we had, Coach Lancaster brings us into the room. We were at McMaster for training camp. We're in the big auditorium, puts on the video, And it was the video that at that time NFL Films had made about
Hmm.
the Grey Cup in Winnipeg, and it's done in typically amazing fashion NFL Films
Love those.
way. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were incredible. And then the end of that was the play of McLaughlin kicking the field goal to win the game with no time left, and then the celebration of Calgary and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And he just let it play out, and then he turned it off, and he said, "Let's go to practice." And that was it. And from that day forward, we're like, "Yeah, we're taking it this year. It's ours."
Yeah.
And that was the mindset from the very first day. And Ronnie just kind of set the tone. He knew it was basically the same group of guys, give or take a few guys. And he said, "Okay, unfinished business. Let's go."
Yeah, the you could see Ronnie on the field back in that win over when the Argos beat his Eskimos at the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
uh, so here we are in that game. You were named the most valuable player in the Grey Cup game, most valuable Canadian in the Grey Cup game. Uh, that was a special moment, I'm sure. But here's the interview you did after the game with Steve Armitage. Let's roll that, Vic. Danny Mac.
I love every one of these guys in the room, and it's been one of those years, and we made it to the Grey Cup, and I said to myself, I got to come up big in this Grey Cup. And I want to say hi to everybody back in Hamilton, everybody believed, my friends, my family, my friend Whitey back at Filthy McNasty's. We're bringing the thing back home to Hamilton. I couldn't be happier.
Mike, congratulations. Mike, back to you. Okay.
So what I mean, what a moment! I mean, a Hamilton boy winning the Grey Cup for the hometown team. I can't imagine it gets any better than that.
No, I haven't seen that in a long time. Let's put it that way. It's been 25 years this November. So to see that put a smile on my face and reminded me how young I used to be. But it felt like we did it. Like it was the culmination of just working hard, and we weren't necessarily player for player the most talented, let's say, but we were the best team, and we had the best locker room, and we trusted and we loved one another, and we still do to this day, which is in the world of sports, and sports has changed so much, it's uncommon, but we just had this bond that black, white, young, old, American, Canadian, anything in between, we were all the same. And so when I see that, that's just a culmination of like, okay, we got it done. And as a hometown kid, it's extra special.
Yeah, it was nice to see Ronnie finally get that Grey Cup as well. That was pretty special in many ways. So, what led to the retirement in 2007?
Well, I like to call that a forced retirement, Joe. That's what it's just basically there had been a big change, new coaching staff, new president, a little bit more of a wipe the slate clean approach to the team going into 2007. And Rob Hitchcock and I, who are both Hamiltonians and both of the same vintage, and usually mistaken for one another at least once or twice a week. We were kind of the long-term veterans and the ones that met with the new coaching staff and got acquainted with them and basically said, "Okay, these are my guys. You're the two vets. You're going to help me through this transition." And it was Charlie Taft who was the coach that was coming over, and
Hmm.
we're going to kind of start fresh. And you're my rocks. You're my veterans. And we went to training camp. I had an excellent training camp. Probably the best training camp I had in years. I think as you get older, you just get smarter. And sat out for the first time in my career, was asked not to play in the first preseason game, which I thought was okay. After this many years, I'll take it. That's a lot,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have to play that. And
sure.
then getting ready for the second game, there was a knock on the door, and I got asked downstairs by Mike McCarthy and opened the door to the meeting room. And at that time, I was a member at large with the Players Association, so we were in the middle of a collective bargaining. So I thought it had something to do with that. And I opened the door and saw the whole Brain Trust. And I was like, "Oh no!" And they're like, and that's when it kind of came out. We're
Hmm.
making a
Hmm.
change, and you and Rob. And I said, "Rob too?" And he's like, "Yeah." I guess Rob had just went
Yeah,
in before me, so that shook me because Rob has spent his whole career there, and it just as an athlete, you always hope that you can keep on playing, and sometimes you run into situations where even if you can, that it's time for a change from a management position. Just like I left Hamilton to go to Toronto, left Toronto to Hamilton, and vice versa. Sometimes you just got to move on. So it took a while to get over. It took me a while to turn on the TV and watch a Cat game. But I think as you get older and you get more mature and you just realize, man, that was a hell of a ride. and you understand it better, and you move on. But for a while there, it was a big deal, and they certainly weren't winning, and it was, our departure didn't help, but at the same time, it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, it's a tough part, but when you look back at what you were able to accomplish, it takes some of the that salt out of the wounds, I suppose. You got a chance to coach your old alma mater. You came back with some receiver tips a while back. Let's watch that clip.
Number one is hand placement, how important that is to really catch the football, become a good receiver, see it with your eyes, bring the ball in. So everyone knows this is a football. There's many different ways to catch the football, and you've probably seen on TV guys catch it all over the place in funny different ways.
So what was going on in this particular setup? Do you
Well,
recall?
this was a camp for some younger kids. It took place at the soccer dome here in Hamilton, and at the time, I can't remember exactly if it was for the Players Association or something related to that of the Ticats. I mean, I would have died for that opportunity when I was a kid if Rocky DiPietro walked into some spot and
Right.
taught me to catch a ball, right? So I was always really kind of very open to be able to for those opportunities to help coach and help teach young people, and hopefully a few learned. I held camps when I first got to Hamilton, and to this day, actually about a week ago, I ran into not a young kid anymore, but at that time was a young teen who said, "I went to your football camp in Hamilton
Wow.
in 1996 or whatever it was, and it was awesome and this and that." So it's all those little points of contact. I mean, it takes nothing to do that kind of stuff. I always enjoyed it, and I had a great group of guys around me that enjoyed doing it too.
So you were at the CFLPA. You helped coach at McMaster, a team that won the Vanier Cup in 2011. Do you feel like your fingerprints were in that in some way?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I certainly I could see the writing on the wall. With the program that was being run there, and I really enjoyed my time coaching there. It's just unfortunate. Coaching that's a gig. You got to be all in, and I kudos to those coaches who don't get time off, work extra hours, and just wasn't for me at that point in time.
Well, let's talk about making that transition then from football to basketball. How did you end up with the Canadian Elite Basketball League?
Really by chance, but I think some of it by just karma. I'd always wanted to be in the business side of sports, specifically the CFL, because I just knew it inherently from my time there and different roles and different views. But I also know that the CFL at that time, at least, was a tight knit group that really there was not a lot of turnover. If there was turnover, somebody just went to another team, so they just kind of went in a
Mm.
circle. So
Hmm.
my opportunities were becoming more limited, so I had to go and get a real job. And
Yeah.
I happened to find a really interesting and fun job selling private jets. So you can imagine you meet some pretty
Wow.
interesting people. And the very first person I met was a gentleman by the name of Richard Petco, who became the founder of the CBL. And basically, he befriended me, and we befriended one another. And he knew about my time in Toronto, my time with the Players Association. And long story short, had an idea about starting a FIBA league, a domestic league in Canada, that would run in the spring and summer, and kind of base it off of all the domestic leagues all over the world. And he was a European, so he understood kind of domestic sport. And I was like, hell yeah, like let's do it. I just that's what I was waiting for. And the beauty of this is that it was something different, and I brought a different lens to it. I didn't have any preconceived notions or relationships, so I can just start from scratch. And then I had the good fortune of spending 20 some years of my life in the CFL and the breeding ground for all domestic pro sport. I mean, up until us and the CPL, their CFL was the only one for 100 and some odd years. So everything that's learned about, running a league or running teams in this country from a Canadian perspective is usually learned through the CFL. So, and that includes some good, includes some bad. And because I was able to start from scratch, and Richard handed me the keys to create this for him and allowed me to create it, over time and how I wanted. Um, then I was able to really fine tune kind of, the league, and to the point where, I I think we made some really tough decisions early with playing through COVID and doing stuff like that that
Mm.
we only could do because of having that single owner and that single mindset and single decision making process rather than jumping through hoops with lots of others. So, and there was this, ways we devised the league and the rules and certain things that I may not have been able to fly now under our current, structure, but flew then. And it really created the basis of the CBL and created parity and it created high brand standards because it was all kind of done together as one. So, building that was amazing, and seeing it develop over time and working through stuff like COVID was incredible. Wouldn't want to do it again ever. But you learn a lot about what you're building, and you fine tune it, and then you start looking, okay, what's step two? And step two for us was adding teams and going to more markets and bringing in private ownership. And then step three is continuing to bring in more private ownership, continue to expand, and kind of stay on the track that we're on. So what I'm happy most about is I think I've been able to be part of something that now, it's not me sitting in the stands that I ever win watching football. It's a young boy or girl sitting in the stands of one of our arenas across the country watching basketball and then getting the
Mhm.
opportunity now to dream and want to be on that court. So there's nothing better than you have to see it. You have to visualize it. It's the only way it becomes real. And so be able to do that in 10 markets across the country and hopefully a lot more is very satisfying, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long ago that this league, took flight, and the jet analogy is there. So uh, yeah, so it came together, and here you are fighting your way through COVID. Not only are you surviving, but the league is thriving. You go from six teams to 10 teams now, and you know. And you can see the mass and what you guys had to go
Yep.
through. Now we
Oh
got
yeah.
crowds, and things are a little bit. You described it at the time, I think, as a party wrapped around a basketball game with a ton of value from the fans. That's still the case, I'm assuming.
It's still the case, and I think what has improved year after year is the entertainment value and the play on the court. The play on the court has been instrumental to us being, certainly globally recognized as a very legitimate league. And we've been able to send 16 players through to the NBA and NBA contracts,
Wow.
which from a domestic league is unheard of. It doesn't happen. But we have the benefits of, we have some limitations of when we play because of the timing, but we have benefits as well because we have access to some of the best players in the world, and we play in the beautiful country in the summer that's close to the US, and we can attract talent, and we have broadcasters that pick up our games and showcase them all over the world, and there's eyeballs on these players, and they get better contracts when they leave, and they have a great time, and they're compensated well, and get to elevate their games and represent their hometown, their country, or if they're from overseas, they get to play in Canada and have a new experience. So all those things, the players are the most important, as you know, and you have to make sure. And I'm very fortunate that I have that background as a player that I could at least always look at decisions with that lens to ensure that our biggest asset is happy. That's, I think, the most important.
Yeah, 10 teams now, from 6 provinces, representing this country very well, no doubt about that. So, um, there's most of the teams, well, all the teams were originally owned by the league. Now there's a
Mhm.
few of the teams are owned, individually. What's your objective in this regard?
Yeah, so right now there's 5 of the original teams that are still owned by the original owner. They're not owned by the league, they're managed by him, and then there's 5 other independent owners. So the idea is that we are going to find 10 independent owners for the 10 current teams, and at the same time look for expansion markets so that we
Mhm.
likely get to a 14 to 16 team league. We do have preferred markets. We do have conversations going for expansion for the purchase of some of the existing markets and finding those local owners in those markets, because we have seen very clearly that the minute we're able to pass on an Edmonton or expand to a Winnipeg or expand to a Scarborough or pass on a Vancouver or a Calgary, where we relocated from Guelph, and see the massive uptick because of local ownership in terms of tickets and revenue and awareness and community, it it's it I know where the future is going, and I know how bright it can be under that new landscape. So that's what I work on, and then we continue to work on just continue to grow the game and having more awareness. The fact that people still don't know about us is actually a good thing. So we need to continue to. We're still young, and it's okay. We got we'll keep knocking down barriers year after year. But the fact that there's a vast part of the country that has no idea, that's okay. We'll get to them. I feel that with the trajectory of basketball, what may happen with the Olympics now across the board, different whether it's men's, women's, or 3X. There's never been a better time to be in basketball. It's especially in this country. So everything is kind of coming together, at a good time.
So, there's 20 regular season games each team plays, decided not by time, but by points. Explain to us how that particular, games are decided.
Yes. So right now we do have 20 games. We are moving to a 24 game season next year, expanding the schedule, which is again part of the growth of what we're doing. But in terms of every one of our games, they are FIBA rules games. So they are 10-minute quarters versus what the NBA is at 12. A couple different rule variations that allow the FIBA games much more free flowing, less timeouts, a little bit more aggressive in certain respects, in a really fun game. And we kind of make it even more fun by taking the worst part of basketball. And most of us have seen a blowout game with, a minute 30 left. That takes 35, 40 minutes because it's foul to the line. The trailing team's trying to get back. The other team's trying to, just to run out the clock. And it's not good basketball. So a data scientist many years ago came up with a different way to end a game based on the visualizing 5,000 or reviewing all these other games, the timing and all the data that surrounds all the math. I guess he's from Mensa, so he's a lot smarter than me. And and to figure out, okay, is there a better way? And he came up with the system which he called the Elam ending. The Elam ending really, in general, means that at the first stoppage in play in the fourth quarter, under 4 minutes for us, the minute that clock is stopped, could be a foul, could be a ball out of bounds, whatever it is, in the fourth quarter under 4 minutes, the time shuts off. Whatever the score is at that time, let's call it 80 to 71, we add +9 to the leading team score. So the leading team score is at 80, the target score becomes 89. Now both teams race to 89. Whoever gets to 89 first wins. The team that's been leading obviously has an advantage. They only need 9 points to go, and the team that's trailing needs the 9 plus whatever they're trailing. So in this case, 18. And it becomes almost a next bucket win scenario. So the shot clock still remains, but there's no game clock. So what you're doing is you have to limit fouling because there's a defined score. So every time you put somebody to the line, you're just chipping away closer and closer to that eventual score. So the trailing team has to play excellent defense. They can't foul, same issue. And it just becomes your backyard basketball next bucket wins. It becomes just a little more intense, or a lot more intense. It gives the trailing team an opportunity to come back and get hot. And it still gives the leading team, the point differential to finish it as they should if they play that way. But inevitably, because of the pressure within that time period, especially after a couple of quick scores, let's say by the trailing team, it becomes very intense. And every shot is calculated, every shot is measured. And one of the worst places to be is you're 3 points away from target score, and the other team's trailing by 10, let's call it. And every time you come down the court, instead of taking the simple 2 and making it into a two play, to get your 4 points and win the game, they try and win with the 3. And then long rebound, outlet, bucket. They come back, long 3, outlet, bucket. And next thing you know, it's a tie game. And it happens all the time. So the beauty of the game is all of our games end on a winning bucket. It could be a free throw. It could be a walk-off dunk. It could be a goaltend. It could be a three-pointer. But there's so much amped up into the game. And generally speaking, they're all contested very tightly. So it's very good basketball and very intense basketball. And one major thing, nobody leaves the arena, ever. People always
No.
stay to the end, and that's not common in a what a blowout situation would be.
For sure. Yeah, that
Yeah,
the trailing team coming back to win happens all the time. I've watched, highlights of a lot of the games here.
yeah.
So we also witnessed some history recently. Jalen Harrison, you mentioned that 16 players have gone on to the NBA, and I'm thinking this could be one of them. Guy who plays for the Saskatchewan Rattlers had some kind of night hitting from everywhere against the Brampton Honey Badgers, ended up with 45 points. Tell us about that effort by Jalen.
Well, Jalen's been in the league now, for about 2.5 years. He was a big time player in Scarborough, helped them get to a championship. He's just, he's a special player. Like, you don't get drafted in the NBA unless you're a special player. So I
Right.
think what makes it even more special is that throwing up 45 points in a 40-minute game is big, right? This is an NBA game's a 48-minute game. That other 8 minutes is a long time to score points.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
throwing up 45 in that is a big deal. And having guys like Jalen involved in the league is a big deal for us. And we celebrate when these guys get chances to go to the NBA. We just had a bunch of guys go to summer league because we build into our contracts the fact that they can leave during our season to go to summer. We want them to go and get a chance to go to the NBA. And if it doesn't work out, they can come right back and finish out the season with us. But we lost a couple players that signed
Yeah.
two-way NBA contracts. That's a celebration for us. So of course it's a loss, but it's also what we're here for.
Yeah, it's also a win, no doubt about that, because it
Yes,
looks good
yes.
on the league for sure. So another impressive effort a few weeks back by Kobe McEwen, the Van City Mamba. Kobe, he's a Toronto native, has helped lift Vancouver to the top of the Western Division. Tell us about Kobe. I like his name.
Kobe is a big time player. He's a baller. Definitely a top Canadian candidate in our league, without a doubt. Works his tail off. Was a huge pickup for Vancouver. He had played the previously 2 years in Hamilton. So to get him to Vancouver, and when talking to Vancouver coaches, that was their priority, and it's paid off. He's a bona fide leader. He plays every minute as if it's the very first minute. He goes real hard. He's a good kid. We were out. These are kids to me now, which is crazy. But
Yeah, yeah.
we were out in Ecuador with World Vision, and Kobe was one of our players that came out, and I was very fortunate to be there as well, and just to see him interact with the kids there. I got a lot of time for Kobe McEwen. He's a good person, and it's great to see. He's a great, great player too.
Okay, so the Scarborough Shooting Stars are the defending champions. Uh, we're going to watch the final plays from that game last summer with a familiar voice on the call. Roll that, Vic.
Barber. Dribble draw. Top of the circle. Right to lane. Barber to the rack. Got it. They're going to count it. And this ball game is over. And the Scarborough Shooting Stars are the shining stars of the CEBL as they have captured their first ever 2023 CEBL championship.
So, gotta love the call by Chuck Swirsky every time. I always love Chuck. Everything Chuck Swirsky calls, I love.
Yeah.
How did you get the Swirsky involved?
You know what? Yeah, we got good people around us. John Lashway, who's my deputy commissioner, spent a long time, over 20 years in the NBA, with the Raptors, with the Portland Trail Blazers, with MLSE and the Leafs, and
Yeah.
just is a good, solid guy that and he knows everybody. And it was phone calls. John making phone calls, and guys like Swerse saying, "Yep," and we're like, "Hey, Swerse, this is what we got to pay you. Like, this is what we pay everybody." Didn't matter. He just loves the game, and I think for him, I think this is big for him. Like, he enjoys it. I think basketball is everything to him in many respects, in a positive way, and he finds so much enjoyment in it. Of course, we love the fact that when you're flipping through the channels and you're on TSN and pops on our game and it's Chuck Swirsky, you're going to pay attention. It's going to catch your attention, and I think it works perfectly for what he does. He's been great.
Get out the salami and cheese. Okay, tell us about this year's playoff tournament. We already know that Montreal and Vancouver have clinched spots in their respective conference finals. Ahmad Hill had a big game this past weekend with 19 points as the Alliance got past the Bandits 80-78. That ended Vancouver's 4-game win streak. Um, what separates these two teams from the rest?
Well, I will say this that Vancouver is probably one of the deepest teams. They're very strong. They have done everything they needed to do to get themselves to a position that they're win away from going to the championship. So when I look at the depth of that roster and the mismatches on the roster, they're certainly going to be, at the very top teams to beat. And then if you look at the East, because of the way we play our championships, the host gets a bye. So Montreal will get the bye. They're coming on late, which is typical and what happens, and not a bad thing in terms of the excitement level locally. But then we're going to have a big dog fight in the East. It kind of to be that other team that meets
Right.
Montreal there. The top team is Niagara, and they're going to wait for the winner between Ottawa and Scarborough. And those kind of matchups down the stretch, single game, anything can happen. The amount of parity in our league is tremendous. So they're going to be highly contested games, and whoever makes it out of the East is going to be up against not only Vancouver, but a good group of guys from Winnipeg, Calgary, or Edmonton. So yeah, it's been a heck of a year. I think the clear favorites in the East, in Niagara, and the West in Vancouver have been true to, they've earned it, and the ones just underneath are just underneath, and then it's just anybody's ball game.
And you have 2 championship weekends, isn't it how it works? 2 playoff weekends?
So what we do is we'll have our starting on the 2nd, we will have
Yep.
our conference quarterfinals. That will lead to our conference finals on the 4th, on Sunday. And then from there, we will get the final 2 to join up with Vancouver and Montreal. We'll have the semifinals, or what would be the conference finals, on the 9th. So West teams versus West teams, and the East battles it out for the conference final, and then it'll be East-West final on the Sunday. So over the next 10 days or so, we will have our 7 playoff games, and all wrapped up in a bow with a kind of a 3-game weekend in Montreal this year.
You look at Canadian basketball. We've got medal contenders in Paris in both men's and women's. I mean, listen, I remember going through a lot of lean years in Canadian basketball. What has happened? What's the difference? How is this happening?
I think guys have bought in. I think the federation under Michael Bartlett, who came over from MLC, has done a great job elevating, or demonstrating the importance of getting and attracting the top talent. Like you can't just keep doing what they've been doing. There's got to be a reason, and you got to get guys to believe. And I think they found someone in a Shea that could attract the other NBA guys, and they trusted him, and that was really important. And then we get all caught up in all these NBA guys, but then there's another host of 14 to 20 guys, all of which are CBL guys that are the ones that help in those, opportunities in the off season. So during the winter months when the NBA guys are playing, but they're helping qualify to the Olympics. So they're helping qualify to the World Cup. So we finally created what I believe to be is almost like a system. And it's a recurring system, and we're able to help as CBL play a part in it. But the depth of talent within the program of Canada basketball is very deep. And to get the commitment like we've got this year from the NBA guys is only going to ignite the fire under all the others. If they are able to medal, and they should, that'll start a firestorm in this country of more people playing basketball. And that's really good.
Yeah, that World Cup medal is pretty special. Yeah, pretty special for sure. Okay, it's a question I like to ask all my guests. So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think I and I don't know where I've learned this, but I've certainly learned it through experience. Is just not to have any fear of failure, and I approach everything not thinking about what could go wrong. I don't care what could go wrong. We're going to make it full speed because I believe in it and I trust in it. And if we make mistakes, we'll learn from it and we'll move on. So that no fear of failure is something that lives kind of always in the back of my mind. And it doesn't go unchecked, but you got to be able to pull a trigger when you truly believe in something.
Right. I'm thinking that here's Mike Morreale. He could have maybe somehow got into that musical chair situation in the CFL. But, here you are, where you are, doing
Doing
what
my
you're
own
doing.
path, right? I took a
It's
risk. Coming
unbelievable.
here
Yeah.
was, yeah, coming here and starting this was a major risk, but I didn't see it that way. Others did. So just like they thought starting the league was crazy and it's never going to work, but I just didn't believe it. So I felt strongly enough to know that if I had a little bit of control, then I felt comfortable in what was happening. I had good people that would do anything to make it work. But yeah, so if I listened to other people, I wouldn't have moved forward. Or if we wouldn't have played through COVID. We'd have been done. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And I'm glad it worked out how it did.
Well, the league is fun. It's exciting. You've done a hell of a job, buddy. Thank you for taking the time to join us and continued success with the CEBL.
Thanks for having me on, Joe. Much appreciated.
All right. We'll have more after this.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Rely on Walton Restoration's 40-plus years of excellence in residential and commercial restoration. Their strong reputation is built on workmanship, professionalism, and outstanding customer service. Trust Walton as your dependable partner in emergencies, serving Durham, Kawartha, and Northumberland regions. Call 905-725-5666 or visit waltonrestoration.com. Experience top-tier workmanship and service. Walton Restoration, the trusted name in property restoration. Join satisfied customers like me.
And we want to thank all the folks who make the show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network, Buzz TV Live, and Zingo TV. Also, check out the show on YouTube. All of our past shows are there, shorts. Like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. Thanks once again to Mike Morreale for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. And let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves in response to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com. Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Last but not least, we relaxed at a luxury resort and took a dip in the famous Dead Sea. This beautiful resort was a perfect way to cap off our incredible adventure in Egypt and Jordan. After days of exploring ancient ruins and bustling markets, It was wonderful to just kick back, put on a little mud, and soak up the sun by the Dead Sea. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the amazing cuisine in Egypt and Jordan. Don't forget to try the delicious local food like mouth-watering Egyptian barbecue. And the best part is that our Trip Oppo tour includes almost all of the meals, so you can indulge in the local cuisine without worrying about opening your wallet. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.